The crowd falls silent as a small girl steps onto the America's Got Talent stage. Her shoes are worn, her dress slightly faded, but her eyes, they shine with quiet courage. Simon Cowell looks up curious when she says softly, "I'm singing this for my mom. She's watching from the hospital." The entire audience holds its breath. No one expects that this moment will change everything. For her, for Simon, and for millions watching around the world. In the narrow streets of Manila, where jeepneys honked and children ran barefoot between stalls of fried bananas and fresh fish, a voice often rose above the city noise, clear, warm, and full of emotion. It belonged to Lara, a 13-year-old girl with hair that caught the afternoon sun and eyes that carried both innocence and wisdom far beyond her years. She didn't own a microphone or a stage. Her stage was the cracked sidewalk in front of a tiny sari-sari store, and her spotlight came from the flickering street lamps that buzzed each night. She'd place a small plastic cup on the ground, not for applause, but for coins. Those coins were her family's hope. Each song she sang could mean a meal, a bus fare, or her mother's medicine. Her mother, once a seamstress, had fallen ill months ago. Lara became the family's heartbeat, her voice their only steady rhythm. Every note she sang carried her mother's prayers and her siblings' dreams. Neighbors would stop to listen. Jeepney drivers parked along the curb just to catch her songs before driving off again. Even strangers passing by would slow down, drawn by that fragile yet powerful sound. That evening, the sky was painted gold and purple as Lara began to sing "The Climb" by Miley Cyrus, a song she'd learned by ear from an old radio. Her voice was tender at first, like a whisper of hope against the chaos around her. "There's always gonna be another mountain." Her tone wavered slightly, then grew stronger. Each lyric felt personal, like she was singing her own story. The struggles, the dreams, the determination, it was all there in her trembling voice. An elderly woman nearby wiped a tear. A young boy clapped softly. And for a brief moment, that noisy, crowded street fell quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause to listen. Then something unexpected happened. A tourist, an American backpacker, stood across the street, phone in hand, recording. He couldn't understand the full story behind her song, but he could feel it. The raw emotion, the honesty, the beauty hidden in simplicity. When Lara finished, she bowed shyly, whispering, "Salamat po." The man smiled and dropped a few bills into her cup, more than she'd ever earned in one evening. Later that night, that same man posted the video online with a simple caption, "A voice from the streets of Manila that deserves the world's stage." By morning, the video had traveled across oceans, viewed, shared, and loved by thousands. And though Lara didn't know it yet, that one song sung beneath a broken streetlight would become the first step of a journey that would soon take her farther than she had ever dreamed, all the way to the America's Got Talent stage. When the email arrived, Lara didn't believe it was real. She stared at the screen on an old borrowed phone, the message glowing faintly against the cracked glass. "Congratulations! You've been selected to audition for America's Got Talent." For a moment, time stood still. Her siblings crowded around her, eyes wide. "Eight, does that mean you're going to America?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, I think so." Her mother, lying weakly on a bamboo bed, called her closer. "Anak," she said softly, reaching out to touch Lara's cheek. "This is God's way of showing that your voice was never meant to stay hidden." Lara knelt beside her mother, clutching her hand. "But Mama, we don't have money for a passport." Or a ticket. That night, the entire neighborhood came together. The same people who used to stop by to listen to her sing now came to help her dream take flight. A tricycle driver offered to take her to the city for free. A local vendor handed her a small envelope with her savings. Even the sari-sari store owner who had watched Lara grow up said, "You've given us pride, Anak. Let us give something back." It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to start the journey. Every peso carried love. Every coin represented a prayer. The day of her flight came sooner than anyone expected. At the small Manila airport, Lara held her mother's photo close to her chest. Her suitcase was old, her clothes simple, but her spirit unshakable. Before she entered the departure gate, her mother whispered her final words through a phone call, her voice trembling but full of faith. "Remember, Anna, no matter how big that stage is, sing like you're still in front of our house. Sing for the people who believed in you when the world didn't know your name." As the plane lifted off the ground, Laura pressed her forehead to the window. Below her, the city lights shimmered like stars scattered across the earth. She thought of the nights she sang on the streets, the sound of jeepneys and laughter echoing in the distance. Now, everything was quiet. For the first time, she was leaving behind the only world she'd ever known. Her family, her home, her country. But deep inside, she carried them all. Hours later, when the plane finally descended into Los Angeles, Laura looked out and smiled faintly. "I made it, Mama," she whispered. "We made it." And as she stepped off that plane, holding her worn-out bag and her mother's photo, she didn't know what awaited her. But she knew one thing. She wasn't just chasing a dream anymore. She was carrying the hopes of an entire community, and the love of a mother who believed her little girl's voice could reach the world. The bright lights of America's Got Talent were nothing like the soft glow of the Manila street lamps Laura was used to. Everything felt bigger. The stage, the crowd, the cameras, even her heartbeat. She stood behind the curtain, clutching her small, weathered microphone charm, a gift from her mother. It wasn't real gold, but to Laura it was priceless. A stagehand smiled at her nervously trembling hands. "First time?" She nodded shyly. "First time. Anywhere this big." Then came the moment. Her name was called. "Next up, please welcome from the Philippines, Lara Santos." As she walked onto the stage, the audience erupted in polite applause. The judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel, smiled encouragingly. But Laura's eyes stopped at one face. Simon's. She had seen that face 100 times on YouTube, the one that never hid emotion, good or bad. "Hello," Simon said, leaning forward. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lara." "From the Philippines," she said softly. He smiled. "And what will you be singing tonight?" "The Climb." "By Miley Cyrus," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Simon raised his eyebrows. "Good choice. Why that song?" Lara looked down, then met his gaze again. "Because my mom taught me to never give up, no matter how hard the climb." A hush fell over the theater. The music started. At first, her voice was quiet, almost fragile. You could hear the tremble of nerves in her tone, the weight of everything she had carried across the ocean. But as the melody built, something in her changed. Her fear melted away, replaced by the fire she carried from home. There's always going to be another mountain. Her voice soared through the arena, pure, soulful, and filled with truth. It wasn't polished perfection. It was real. And in that authenticity, people found something rare. The camera cut to Simon. Eyes glistening, his usual stern expression softened. By the second verse, audience members were already standing, phones lifted, some wiping away tears. When she hit the final note, her voice cracked. Not from weakness, but from emotion. And that crack made it human, unforgettable. Silence. Then an explosion of applause. Simon leaned toward his mic, his voice low but heartfelt. "Lara, that was one of the most honest performances I've ever heard. Even Miley Cyrus would be amazed by you." Before Lara could even process his words, the crowd began chanting, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Simon looked at her one more time, smiled, and pressed the button. The stage filled with golden confetti, shimmering, dancing around her like blessings from heaven. Lara fell to her knees, crying, whispering, "Mama, I did it." In that golden rain, a girl who once sang on the streets of Manila finally found her stage, and her voice echoed through millions of hearts around the world. Backstage, the roar of the audience still echoed in Lara's ears like a dream she couldn't wake up from. Her hands were trembling, still dusted with gold confetti. The moment she had imagined 1,000 times had finally happened. But it still didn't feel real. She sat in the corner, clutching her mother's photo against her chest. tears streaming down her face. Crew members and fellow contestants passed by congratulating her, but she barely heard them. There was only one thing she needed to do: call home. She opened her mother's contact, her heart pounding faster than ever. The phone rang once, twice, and then a weak, familiar voice answered. "Lara." "Mama!" Her voice cracked as tears came again. "Mama, I got the golden buzzer." On the other end of the line, her mother was silent for a moment, the kind of silence that holds everything words can't express. Then came a soft, trembling laugh, followed by gentle sobs. "I saw it," her mother whispered. "They showed it on TV here. Everyone in the neighborhood is celebrating." "Oh, Anak, you did it." Lara's breath caught. "Mama, they loved it. Simon Cowell. He said even Miley Cyrus would be amazed." Her mother chuckled softly through tears. "See, I told you. Your voice was meant to be heard." But as her mother spoke, Lara could hear the fatigue in her tone, the labored breathing, the quiet coughs. It reminded her that even the brightest moments could still carry shadows. Then something incredible happened. Just a few feet away, one of the AGT producers who had overheard her conversation approached gently. "Is that your mom?" he asked softly. Lara nodded. He smiled warmly. "Tell her we'll make sure she gets the best care possible. Your story has touched so many hearts tonight. Trust me, help is already on the way." At first, Lara didn't understand. But hours later, her phone began flooding with messages. Strangers from around the world offering donations, prayers, and words of love. A hospital in Manila reached out, saying they had seen the performance and wanted to sponsor her mother's treatment. When Lara called again to tell her mother the news, her mother couldn't stop crying. "People I've never met. Helping me," she whispered. "This is what kindness looks like, Anak. Your song. It healed hearts." That night, Lara sat by her hotel window overlooking the glittering Los Angeles skyline. For the first time, she realized her dream wasn't just about singing. It was about connecting souls through compassion. Her voice had become more than sound. It had become hope. As she closed her eyes, she whispered into the night sky, "Thank you, Mama, for teaching me to sing from the heart. The world heard you through me." And somewhere across the ocean, under the quiet lights of Manila, her mother smiled, whispering back, "I always knew the world would." Weeks had passed since that unforgettable golden buzzer moment, yet the world was still talking about the little girl from the Philippines whose voice touched millions. Clips of Lara's performance flooded every corner of the internet. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. People replayed her song not just for the music, but for the feeling it gave them, that deep reminder that hope can rise from anywhere, even from the narrowest streets of Manila. Lara sat quietly in her dressing room before the AGT semifinals, her heart both nervous and full. The walls were covered with letters, hundreds of them, sent by fans from all over the world. Some were from little girls who said they now believed in themselves. Others were from parents who wrote, "Your song gave my child courage." And among them was one letter that made Lara cry the most. A note from the hospital saying her mother's treatment had been fully covered by donations from people inspired by her story. She clutched the letter to her chest, whispering, This is what kindness can do." When she stepped onto the stage again, she looked calmer, stronger. This time, she wasn't singing for survival or fame. She was singing in gratitude. As the music began, she closed her eyes and pictured her mother's smile, her neighbors back home, the people who believed in her when she was just a girl singing on the street. Her voice carried through the arena like a prayer, gentle at first, then rising with power and purpose. Every note felt like a thank you to the world. The camera panned across the judges, Simon wiping his eyes, Sophia smiling proudly, Heidi and Howie both visibly moved. By the final verse, the entire audience was standing, many with tears streaming down their faces. When the music faded, Simon leaned forward again. "Lara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've seen thousands of performances in my life, but very few that remind me why I fell in love with music in the first place. You are one of them, The crowd erupted. In that moment, Lara didn't just feel like a contestant. She felt like a messenger of hope. Later that night, something extraordinary happened. Miley Cyrus herself reposted Lara's performance on Instagram with the caption, "This little girl from the Philippines reminded me what The Climb is truly about. Courage, heart, and love." Lara stared at the screen, speechless, then smiled through tears. She whispered, "Mama." She saw it. And somewhere across the ocean, her mother, now recovering, smiled through her own tears. Her daughter's voice had traveled farther than anyone could have imagined. Not just across countries, but across hearts. Because sometimes it's not fame or fortune that changes the world. It's the kindness behind a single voice, and the love that gives it the strength to be heard.